Welcome to the Strength Spotlight. So today's topic is very interesting. We'll be talking about expanding strengths movement in India, and we'll discuss lessons learned from USA and this part of the world, India. I once again welcome you, and I welcome all the viewers. So Jim, let's try and do a bit differently. I'll share one question or a situation, and let's discuss around it. But before I go to the first question, let me tell everyone about you, what you have been doing, and your top five strengths. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I have with me Jim Collison. Jim Collison is Global Community Manager of Clifton Strengths. He is the one who keeps all the coaches together, takes a lot of initiatives for and supports us, the global community, in making sure that we have the right content, right resources, correct understanding of the practice, and we deliver the right subject to the clients. And when we impact lives by using Clifton Strengths, we are on top of each and everything. Jim has been with Gallup for 2007, and he brings global perspective, insights, and lots of ideas. On a lighter note, we call him the original podcaster. You see, podcasting is quite popular now, but Jim has been doing it for many years. People would have not even heard this term, coined this term podcast, and Jim was doing it from then. His top five strengths are arranger, woo, maximizer, communication, and activator, which makes him a really action-oriented human being. He really works hard. And one thing which I personally like about Jim, that you reach out to him anytime for any issue, his response rate is really hard. And in last 8 years, the kind of work that we have done in India, Jim has a significant role to play in terms of providing us support, quick response. There are queries that we get from our clients, and we reach out to Jim, and Jim is always very quick to respond us, and we have deep gratitude for Jim for helping us in this way. So Jim, once again, welcome to this podcast, and let me ask you a very non-cliched question in a very cliched way. So the first question that I have is, why don't you tell us about your journey? In a way, I'm asking you to share, what do you do for a living?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on, and early here in the U.S., but it's great to be here. I should mention, we've been called to coach as a program, as a podcast. I kind of started that to communicate with people, not for it to be a podcast. Podcasting was just the method we were going to distribute it. But when we were starting this global strengths movement, I remember saying to the leadership at the time, hey, I got this great way to communicate with everybody around the world all at the same time, and it's fairly cheap. It's called podcasting. And so we started podcasting, back in 2013. India was actually the first non-US podcast that we did. So we got called to coach going, had a lot of US guests, and then started thinking in those days, like, okay, maybe we can take this outside of the U.S. And so India was the first place. We'll talk some more about that as we progress. But I started at Gallup 2007. I started as an IT manager and fully intended, and was managing IT resources at the time. Did some recruiting for a while, tech resources to help kind of build our software and development platforms. Did that for a while. And in 2012, we launched this global kind of strengths program, ASC, we called it at the time, now called GGSC. It's how to become a Gallup certified strengths coach. We have about 18,000 of those around the world now. That number grows every single day. Part of my role and responsibility is to make sure they're taken care of, like you mentioned. So I get emails all hours of the day and night. Some people don't think I sleep. I do. I do sleep at night. It does happen. I've just got great support, great folks around me to be able to kind of help with that. I do try to answer emails very fast. People say to me all the time, thank you for the speed at which you got back to me. Apparently that's not everybody does that. So it's one of those kinds of things that I intentionally try to be very quick. Not always very thorough though, but very quick. I try to get the answers fast to back to individuals as fast as possible. But it has been for me, even my own journey of watching this global strengths movement grow. I mentioned in India, we are seeing a burst of Clifton Strengths completes in Japan. We have great licensees and partners down in Brazil. There's lots of great things going on in Europe. I think about my friends on the continent of Africa, where this is, where this is happening. So it's exciting to see it grow around the world. And I get the privilege of waking up every morning and caring about these certified coaches who are helping move this movement.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks a lot. So let's do one thing, because we would like people to get both perspectives. One, the best practices, not just from US, but across the world that you have. And also I'll try to share certain things, which we have been able to do as an organization in last 8 years. So what I'll do, I'll share a question or a situation, and let's try to discuss around it. And you'll share your perspective, and let me also share a little bit
Sure.
of what I know about and how I've been able to do it in the last 8 years. The first question is, or the situation is that, how did you get introduced to the concept of strength-based development? When was the first time when you got to know about it?
Yeah.
How did this? Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it actually came through the book. We wrote a couple books. First, Break All the Rules, which was really
Right.
our book on engagement, and then the follow-up book to that was Now Discover Your Strengths. And I remember I was working at a bank at the time, a bank that I'd worked at for a long time, in their IT group, and I picked up Now Discover Your Strengths. We took I remember taking the assessment. I had some time on my hands. The bank had been purchased by another bank. We were in that lull of time where there wasn't a lot going on. And so I found that book and took it. This must have been then probably 03, maybe 2003, 2003. And I remember taking it and bringing it home and saying to my wife, we need to parent this way. This would be a better way to live our lives than to parent. And so that was my first real experience. At the time, the bank wasn't doing it. It was not it wasn't required. We didn't have coaches. We didn't have at that point, there wasn't any support, but I knew it. I looked at these words and I was like, yeah, these are some things that could make my life better.
Yeah.
And we ought to think about raising our kids. I have five. And we ought to think about parenting using some of these strengths-based methodologies. Wouldn't be, I didn't join Gallup till 2007. It would be 4 years later before I'd even get there. But it had a major impact thinking about who I was and what I did. And so it was an early journey for me. What about you?
Actually, I was working in the learning and talent management space in my company. I was responsible for designing leadership development programs for high potential middle level leaders and senior leaders. And I used to think that, okay, these people have done a lot of good things in their life. And everyone who used to come and tell me about some structure, some program for them, everyone used to say that, okay, we can fix this, we can improve this. And I always used to think that there must be some way through which we can also find out something about what is right with them. Then I did research and I found that, okay, there is strength science exists, and late Don Clifton has created this beautiful world of strengths. And I was really fascinated by that. Then I curated a program and offered this program to my company after completing my certification. And then it was really, really powerful. People really liked it, and they really accepted the way the program is. And they got to know that, okay, someone for the first time offered us something which is based on lenses of strengths. So it actually built my confidence when I saw leaders in my organization understood so much about, I saw clear, impact in their alignment, conversation with each other, trust, and their way of, approaching and working with each other. And that actually impacted me also quite deeply. I was also part of the cohort, and that's how my first experience with Clifton Strength was. It was really, really deep, and then I thought of starting this community of Gallup certified strength coaches and building this organization, Strength Masters, and that's how my journey has been quite fascinating. And every day, I thank Don Clifton for designing something so beautiful, so impactful, which can have a large impact on people's life. And that's
Mhm.
how my journey has been.
Yeah, and as we think about so think about the privilege that I have to get to watch this happen over and over
Yeah,
and over and over again in the context that's not defined by language or not
yeah,
defined by culture or
yeah,
not defined by geography. You can apply these 34 terms, these
yeah,
34 themes, as we call them. They
yeah,
can be applied, and I've watched them be applied across many cultures in the way
yeah,
they applied, and they're a little bit different, kind of based on who's coming and where it's coming from and background and some of those kinds of things. But it gives us this framework. You and I could sit down. You read off my top five. What are yours? We should learn what your top five are too. Why don't you tell me what your top five are?
yeah. My top five are achiever, analytical, connectedness, individualization, and relator.
Yeah, and see, and those are great. And you and I could have this conversation if we wanted to.
Yeah,
We could dig deeply into how we could work together, and we could do it very, very quickly.
absolutely. Absolutely, and that's quite so easy because like we also work with a lot of people who are different, who are spread across different part of the world, and we could connect with people very very easily. It is very very seamless to
Yes.
understand people, connect with them, accept them the way they are. It doesn't take too much of time. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I get the privilege of working with college students once a year. These are
yeah,
freshmen coming in,
yeah.
and they're forming teams and they don't know each other.
Right.
And so that's the first time they've been together and they're forming teams. And I love to bring the Clifton Strengths framework in to help them say, hey, it's forming teams is hard when you're first
Yeah.
starting, when you get people together and you're working. Forming teams is hard, but we have a framework where we can speed it up. We can make you
Right.
more productive. We can help you discover things about each other. And I think the key is to help you find the best from each other,
Yeah.
to help
Absolutely.
you find those things that you're really good at, because those things that you're good
Absolutely.
at you do much easier. So
Yeah.
it's, for me, that's, I love that, that the we
Mhm.
in English we have this saying, the proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, but the whole idea is, yeah, we can talk about this all day long, but until we start using it, when you start using it in the context of people and teams,
Yeah.
that's where you really see it happening. So it's exciting for me. It's fun to watch that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Jim. So why do you think areas of improvement is so overrated and looking at strength is underrated? What is your view?
Well, if you think about, that for a long time, and I think this is starting to change, but for a long time, there's this idea of improvement, improving on every area of your life. Like,
Yeah.
for the longest time, there was all these books, and they still kind of continue to be out there on self improvement and be good at this. And there's 1,000 books, more than that.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
there's a million books on being more disciplined, like how to get more productivity, how to check things off your list. Well, I'm not good at it. No matter how many books you give me, I'm never going to be disciplined. I have
Yeah.
discipline and focus 33 and 34 in my Clifton Strengths. It's just not going to happen. I have to trick myself. If I'm going to do some of those things, I have to put systems in place. For me, I spent a good chunk of my younger years trying to be that disciplined person. I got a planner. In the days of digital planners, I bought a Palm Pilot, right, way back in the day. And I just tried to be the most disciplined person. And those programs would always drop off. I'd start with a flurry because I have activator, right? I have
Yeah.
activator and maximizer.
Yeah.
I'd start with a flurry of activity, and 2 or 3 weeks later it'd be gone, right? And so for me, discovering, like, hey, stop wasting your time trying to be somebody you're not. The job before Gallup, I was a project manager. Not really that great at that. Like, there are things like this, like communication, because I have communication for woo, that make me a pretty good out front public person.
Yeah.
Answering, you mentioned in the intro about answering emails fast. I have activator 5. Like, I naturally gravitate towards those things. When I kind of figured out, and this is still, I mean, it's constant work. We're constantly thinking about this. When I figured out focus myself at those things that I'm really best at, give myself the most opportunities in those areas, boy, the success, it got a lot easier when I started doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also look at it like, like Don Clifton says that your weakness will never develop, but your strengths will develop infinitely. So if
Mhm.
you look at this
Mhm.
phrase and look at, why areas of improvement have always been very overrated. And what I did not like only focusing on areas of improvement, that at times it could be very punishing. And
Yeah.
like, going back to what Don Clifton said, that when you actually tell people to become all rounder, and being an all rounder is a myth, you actually start broadening your focus. You don't narrow your focus, and therefore you don't understand who you are, what works for you. What doesn't work for you is quite easy to find out, but what works for you is something which, once you find that out, then you can understand a whole different new world about yourself, and
Yeah.
and do quite a lot. That's how I look at it. And I, like you, I agree that it's gradually changing.
Yeah.
People uh, are keen to discover more about themselves, and they are finding this methodology as one of the scientific methodology of understanding about self, and applying themselves in multiple ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
15 years ago, when I started working with college students, you'd had to kind of convince them of that. Like, hey, focus on what you're best on, minimize your weaknesses. You'd have to have an intellectual argument about that with them
Yeah,
because the self help culture was so strong here in the United States. And I
yeah,
think so in India as well. I don't think
yeah,
this is
absolutely.
unique to the American culture. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, absolutely.
this is specific to human development, right? And the way we think about things. But today, when I go into colleges and universities, I teach these ideas. Most of the students go, "Yeah, that makes sense," and
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like we're making progress. Would you say the same for India? Would you say that maybe some progress is being made? We don't have to have that argument as much as we used to. I don't know. Your thoughts on that?
Actually, like I said, the strength movement is still growing in India.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who have some understanding about it have started valuing it. But yeah, people have started valuing specifically while raising their children
Yeah.
after teenage, that okay, it makes more sense to allow them to focus what they have, because there are multiple career options that people can choose, and there is no limiting factor in that okay, you can do this, only you can do this. So people have started sort of uh, allowing their children to unbox a lot of things about themselves, and therefore allow them to look at what is right with them. Yeah, but still there's a way to go.
There's
Still,
work to be done.
yeah,
Yeah.
work to be
Yeah.
done.
There's
A lot
work
of
to be
work to be
done.
done.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's a common misconception people have about strength-based framework as an approach, strength-based development as an approach? What is it that
Yeah.
you?
We hear the most when I in the work that I do, it's a horoscope or
Hmm,
it's another personality assessment.
yeah,
The DISC and Myers-Briggs and Enneagram, they've been very, very popular assessments over the last decade. And folks kind of take them, and it creates kind of a one and done, right? And I always say, somebody asked me, what's the best of these? Well, I'm going to say Clifton Strengths because that's what I work with, right?
me too.
but but I would say the best one is the one you use.
Yeah,
And any system can be great if you just use it. But
hmm,
for a lot of folks, if you step into this and you do it one time, this is not a one and done kind of thing.
yeah,
This is a learn and grow kind of thing. This is why
hmm,
it's so important that we have a global a team of coaches around the world who are helping people work and discover. I mean, a coach is just someone who comes alongside and encourage you to do what you already know you need to do, right?
yeah,
You just need someone to hold you accountable, right? And a
yeah,
coach can do that. And so, what I love about the framework, what I love about the Clifton Strengths framework, and what's drawn me to it is that I'm not the most analytical guy. Analytics, analytical is low for me, strategic low, right? I'm all influencing, all relationship building stuff. It's I can understand it. It's easy. It's actually a framework that's easy right out of the box. We use
yeah,
words like learner, or activator, or connectedness, that kind of makes sense, right? You can you can look at the definitions, but so I think it's an easy framework to grasp and to use. Now that we have it translated in a whole bunch of different languages, it's also it translates well across language and culture. I have some friends now that I work with in Brazil. They speak Portuguese, and we can have some conversations. They've got an understanding of the term woo. They use the term charisma in Portuguese, right? Which in English we'd say is charisma, right? And I actually like that word better than I like woo. A lot of English speaking people go, what is woo, right? That may be the one exception to this rule, but it gives us a great opportunity to very quickly get up to speed and understand these terms. It's simple, I guess. I don't know. What else would you add to that?
So the common misconception that people have about strength-based development, that people look at this as just an assessment, and they think that okay, they have given an assessment, they've got report, and it's done. No, I mean the report, as you know, the report is just a beginning, not an end.
Yeah.
And therefore, people have not leveraged it like a developmental tool. I mean, organizations like we have worked with 100 plus organizations. There, we have been able to implement it like a learning journey. So, for example, let's say there are organizations where we have implemented specific practices like strength-based leadership, designed for high potential employees, 3-month journey, 4-month journey, completely built on trust, stability, compassion, and hope. And these are, so people have not understood this aspect. So therefore, this remains unexplored. Very few organizations have understanding that it has multiple practices like strength-based parenting, strength-based selling, strength-based leadership, strength for teachers. So these are multiple practices which exist within the strength science framework. That's something which people have misconception about. They think that's assessment done, and therefore the comparison with other assessment tool comes. Second misconception is they think that okay, we only focus on strengths. We completely ignore weaknesses. So therefore, we are not talking about positivity trap here. We are not talking about strength science does not ignore weaknesses. It talks about maximize your strengths and learn how to manage your weaknesses and find out very sustainable, very organic, your own non-prescriptive, non-threatening ways of managing your weaknesses, which can be sustained. So these are a couple of misconceptions that we come across when we implement strength-based development.
Yeah, you heard me a second ago say focus and discipline, 33 and 34. That's me admitting I have weaknesses. Like, to your point, I think sometimes people say, well, you never talk about those.
Yeah.
I talk about them all the time because I protect myself from them. I know that I've got to do some things. By the way, that doesn't get me off the hook on saying, oh, no, I'm not good at that, so I can't do my job, right?
Yeah.
There's processes that I have to do every single day in my role as a community manager. And I know because I don't have that focus and discipline, I have to create processes to help me get through that. Let me share this because I think some people find this interesting. A farmer, someone who wakes up every day thinking about producing something off the land or have a harvest, they have these things called morning chores.
Yeah,
right. It's the things they do every morning. They wake up super early. They get their chores out of the way. And they have to do them every day, and they're not fun. They're not exciting. They're very productive, right?
Yeah.
And they have to be done. For me, I took that concept during the pandemic when I started taking on some of these responsibilities, these daily responsibilities of things I have to do. And I said, you know what? I'm going to apply the morning chore concept to this. And now I haven't done them today because we started too early, but generally it's the first thing I do every day before I can do anything else. So no fun things until I get my morning chores out of the way. And it's been a way, and I have been so productive with those morning chores. Like, it's unbelievable the things that I can get done. But it was a way of protecting myself from my weaknesses, like from the things that get in the way of my productivity. Jim, get it knocked out before the sun comes up, and then you can spend the rest of the day doing fun stuff. Yeah. So when we think about that, you are absolutely right. I mean, we do talk about that. but the goal is to get productive. So what
Yeah.
kind of things can we put in place to be highly productive? Because we all want to just be productive, right?
Yeah.
We want to matter. We want to make a difference. We want
Yeah.
to contribute. We're built
Right.
that way as humans, right?
Yeah.
And so the goal is to get there faster, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's all about productivity. How can we be productive? By understanding, by maximizing what we have and managing what we do not have. That's how
Yeah.
it works. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and I smile a little bit. I used to feel shame because
Yeah.
I couldn't focus, or I wouldn't follow up on things, the discipline aspect of it. I
Yeah.
wanted to so desperately be disciplined. When I gave that up, it was free. I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm just don't put me. I tell people, don't put me in situations where that's going to be required,
Yeah.
or I'm going to need some help. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, in teams that I'm on, I tell people that, and I find people who really are good at that. Listen,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to believe, but there are
Yeah.
people who love to get those kinds of to check things off the list and make sure it happens on time, and they're responsible. I don't have a lot of responsibility either, and they're responsible to get stuff done. I cling to those kind of people, right? I can
Yeah.
be their energy. I can be out front. I can do that kind of stuff for them, but I need their help. And I tell them that. I said, you're going to have to help me with this. And so
Yeah.
again, we get that team awareness, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. Quite, really, really enjoying this conversation with you.
Yeah.
So, continuing and changing and taking you to another segment.
Yeah.
So, what our team has done, we reached out to few people, few organizations, and we created a list of questions, which a lot of talent management professionals, HR professionals, business leaders have asked us during different conversation, and they wanted to explore certain aspects of strength science and understand our perspective around it. So the first question is that which they have asked is, what are the first steps an organization should take to implement a strength-based development framework? What has been your experience? How
we have these 5 steps of creating a strengths-based culture, and you could come at a culture, building a strengths-based organization from any of those angles.
yeah.
I do find, though, in the work that we do, the key is senior leadership buy-in, right?
Yeah.
The senior leaders have to say, yes, this is important to us. Can it be done without it? I've also watched grassroots movements where individuals in an organization on teams start this, and they get their whole team to take Clifton Strengths, and they start having team meetings, or they meet at lunch, or they have a book club or whatever, right? And it kind of comes from a groundswell, and we'd say grassroots movement, right?
Yeah.
From the bottom up. We've seen it work that way, but I think it's really, really, really important. So the question I get asked all the time then is, well, how do you get senior leader buy-off on this, right? How do you do that? It's a challenge, right? In a lot of organizations, that's a challenge, because oftentimes they see it just as another program. I do know this. I think you got to do it both ways. You got to have a team of individuals and organizations doing this to show what could be done on a team that's doing it, right? You need a good example. You need some people working hard, being super productive. Because look, if I was your manager and your productivity was off the charts, right? And I said, hey, how are you doing this? And you said, well, I got this Clifton Strengths framework, right? All of a sudden, as your manager, I kind of start going, maybe we should have everybody else take this kind of thing, right? So you have to be a good example. You can't go into this thing with terrible productivity and then say, yeah, hey, you ought to do this. They'll look at you funny and say, why, right? So I think you need both, but certainly, if you're in an organization and you're trying to bring this Clifton Strengths into the organization, you better be living it out yourself, right?
Yeah.
You better be the best example of it, because nobody's, they're like, well, why should we do it? Well, we should do it because I'm living it out and showing it in yourself. Yeah. I don't know. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, in fact, in last 8 years, wherever we introduce this to any organization, we say that okay, just focus on small and then grow big.
Yeah.
Our goal is that okay, if your top leaders, whatever number they have, if they can go through this entire process through a journey and understand this, apply this, uh, experience changes, they can be role models in the organization, and they will create that visible impact, and they are the ones who will drive everyone to be productive by using such a simple, reliable, valid and credible framework. So that is how it has been in our case also. So what we have done, we implemented it, let's say, for leadership team in the organization to start with. They kind of became lighthouses, and they then expanded this movement in the entire organization. It has to be from top, like you said. Exactly, I agree. Many times, the senior leaders do not have buy-in about it, and the junior team members, when they go through it, they do it. I mean, obviously, anyone who will go through Clifton Strength framework will definitely have benefit. But if the linkage is created between senior leaders and the rest of the team, the output will be really, really bigger, and they will be able to leverage the investment that they will make in implementing this entire process really, really well, and that will be really beneficial for the organization in terms of the clear ROIs they will be able to get. That's how it works.
Yeah. We've had 33 million completes. We just crossed that a couple weeks ago, 33 million, and we're doing a couple million a year. What's happening is, as this movement is growing, individuals who've been in one organization may become a leader in that organization, or may move to another organization, and they end up taking it with them. And then they get to the next organization and they're saying, hey, at our last place, we did this, right? So we're seeing some of that have an effect, like leaders now who are moving into senior leadership positions were in frontline management or whatever in other organizations where they use Clifton Strengths. So the more we get this out there, sometimes the easier it is, because people know of it, right? Or they experienced it in another organization. We're finding that helps too.
Right. Thanks, Jim. Thank you for sharing your perspective and thoughts. The second question is from an organization where they have implemented strength-based leadership for senior leaders. Now they are actually gearing up to scale up within the organization, and they have asked this question: what impact have you seen when the entire team starts leveraging their strengths? I mean, we can talk about qualitative impact or whatever insights you can share.
Well, what impact do you see kind of depends, but oftentimes what we see, of course, what we're looking for is productivity impact, right?
Yeah.
Some people have been led to believe or think like that we're just going to all be happy and enjoy working together. Well, yes, that's part of it, but the whole reason we do this is for more productivity. We know when we think about, so for individuals who get the chance to use their Clifton Strengths at work, they're 6 times more likely to be engaged in their job. And that engagement is important because it makes them more productive. It makes them happier. They have less sick hours. They're more often. They steal less often. I mean, there's all these benefits that are available to individuals doing it. And so what we should see is a productivity, assuming all things are the same, a productivity increase across the board for folks using this. If we're not measuring it, a lot of folks say, how do we measure the effects on this? There are not new metrics. We have all the metrics we need. Everything we should be measuring should start to go up in some regards, right? We should start to see more. Things should be better. People's well-being should be improved, right? I mean, there should be a lot of things that should start getting better in organizations. A great measurement of this is in retention, right? Yeah. And people staying, strengths-based organizations tend to have better retention, right? People stay longer. You know how expensive it is to replace someone. Like it's 1.5 times their annual salary to replace them, right? Yeah. So we should start seeing some of those things move in a positive direction. I tell people all the time, you got to measure this. Don't, this isn't a faith. Like we hope this is going to do something. No. Let's put some measurements and some metrics in place. How are we doing? We measure that at Gallup. We measure that through our own Q12, right? Our own engagement survey that we have.
Yeah.
And we're constantly measuring ourselves. How are we doing? How's this working? Are we doing more of that? Is it being more impactful? It's not always about more widgets. I mean, it can be, but maybe we're having greater impact. We measure our customer scores, right?
Right.
What are our customers saying about the stuff that we're doing? So I think we can be measuring, we should be measuring more with a framework like this, not less. This isn't a spray and pray kind of methodology. This is very controlled, very evidence-based. And then what are some KPIs or what are some numbers that we can measure to see how we're doing? I don't know. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one is that, like, I completely agree with you that it's not something which we do to make people feel good. So you know your strength and you feel happy.
It does make people feel good.
Absolutely. It will actually make them really, really feel good. So one is that the introduction of framework is very, very positive. So the people will look at that. Okay, this is someone is looking at us from the lenses of strength. So that is, the implementation is quite easy, simple. I would not say easy; it's simple. The acceptance is very simple. And what I see is that organization can get a very simple and easy roadmap for the metrics that they want to chase. And they can, this practice is evidence-based. This is not something which is designed just like that. It has reliability, validity, credibility. It is evidence-based. So therefore, it packs the metrics, intangible metrics, tangible metrics, both. So intangible, it builds trust. People are able to demonstrate compassion towards each other. They accept each other the way they are. So if you look at it, has deep impact on the culture of an organization. So when is it, and there are tools to measure culture of the organization. So that's how it can be measured. Then, like you said, productivity. When people start applying themselves really, really well, they really have an impact on productivity. Another impact is that conversation between people. So, for example, let's say people who know strengths, they can communicate and give feedback to each other very, very objectively. And people can internalize the feedback, understand the root where it is coming from. And at senior level leadership, it is really, really critical, because when you give feedback and do that exchange at a senior level, if you can help where are you coming from, where it is connected, it makes things so simple. So that's how intangible as well as tangible, both the aspects can be very, very deeply impacted by leveraging strengths in teams.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of, since the Industrial Revolution, we have tried to jam people into a process, right?
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be the same. Or if you're going to do this, our company culture is you adapt to us. And I think culture is really a company adapting to the people it's hired, right? It's the other way around. It's figuring out who we are, what's the best of us. And then how do we create a culture around that works for everybody so we can be the most engaged?
I think great insights, Jim. Thanks a lot. So let's talk about future. And when I say future, there is a question about future of work, and someone has asked this question: that how do you see strength-based development can impact future of work in this rapidly changing business environment? What are your thoughts and experiences?
Oh, future of work, not an expert in that. And I don't have the futuristic context themes to help me with that. I'm a good in the day kind of guy, but let me give you a few insights as I think what's ahead. I think if we think about the future of human development, I think this is an area that we're actually getting better at. And the future looks bright when we think about lots of organizations globally are starting to figure out how not to squeeze the most amount of productivity out of every single worker, but to encourage that amount of that amount. When I was a kid, my mom said, "You're gonna do this." I never wanted to do it, right? But when it was my idea, when I wanted to do it, right, I was then I was always more inclined to do it. So I think the future of work, if we can continue down this path of strengths-based cultures and strengths-based development for people, I think the future can look really, really bright in the way of us driving productivity instead of it being driven out of us. And I think we can live and work in more engaged workplaces. We can actually enjoy going to work. I'm seeing a lot of this. I mean, I talk to a lot of people all the time where this is happening. They're like, yeah, no, I'm in a role. I love it. Things are working great. I want to work, I want to go in. I want to do this kind of stuff. So I think the future is bright. We've got some challenges post-COVID right now, as you and I are talking in August of 2024. We've got some challenges with hybrid work, right?
Yeah.
We've got some challenges. There's always global challenges of both political and civil unrest around the world. Those are always going to be challenges for us. But I'm bullish, so to speak, on the future of work and the things that we can get done. We're having the right conversations. I think that's the point. We got a lot of work to do in organizations to make them better, right? We just do. And by the way, that's never going to end. It's always going to be there. That stuff is always going to be there for us. But I think we're having the right conversations. The fact that you and I are having this conversation today in this media, in this form, and we're talking about it, I think it's proof that that we're moving in the right direction. And so I'm excited for the future. I think I'm excited where things are going. We have tons of work to do. Like this is it's not like the job is done. Like my job, your job, all of our jobs will always be there. There will always be things to get better and to do more of. I'm excited for it. But today, guess what? The sun came up. It's going down for you. The sun's coming up for me, and it's a new day. And I got to bring it. I got to bring it today, just like I brought it yesterday. And there's work to be done, right? We got to continue to work with each other to make and let's be kind to each other. Let's work on being kind and compassionate and really listening and understanding people to learn what's best about them and how we can use that in whatever context we're in.
Absolutely. So like you said, future of work is about inclusion. Future of work is about the current generation or the generation which is coming, which is very well aware, very well informed. So they like to do things their own way. So therefore, there is a need to accept them the way they are, understand them, let them apply the way they want to, and guide them, mentor them, coach them, and let them enjoy the work in whichever environment they are working. So in that context, strength-based development works really well because it helps people. It helps people from bringing out best from them, and it focuses on individual excellence leading to the organization excellence, and it creates a sense of belongingness by using a very simple methodology or framework where in an organization everybody is looking at what is right with the other person and accepting them the way they are, and they are happy working together, doing things their own way, and being productive, getting results for the organization.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well said.
Absolutely.
Well said. I like it.
Thank you. So we are just about to reach our time, Jim, and I'd like to sincerely thank you for agreeing to be part of this podcast. This has been really, really insightful discussion. We got amazing insights from you, global perspective, and your experience that you shared with us. Thank you for getting up, really early in the morning and spending your precious time with us. Really, really appreciate, deep gratitude, and really thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, it's nice of you to say. It wasn't that early, but I appreciate it. It's always great to have these conversations. When I was young, and when I mean maybe 14 or 15 years old, there was a movie that came out that showed someone talking on a video conference, on video to the other person. And now this was like 1984, so we weren't doing those kinds of things yet. And I remember thinking, that's the future. Like, I can't wait to get to a day when I can have a conversation with someone in another part of the world via video, and it's normal. Like, it's just, we do it. Today is that day. You're in India, I'm here in the United States. I've had thousands of these kinds of conversations over the last 10 years. And so the future is here today. It's a real privilege to be able to do that, but it's a real privilege to be able to connect with you today, to have this conversation and to see what's going on, and that the future maybe is bright. Hopefully, we have a lot of stuff to work through, but thank you for doing what you do with Strengths Masters. Thanks for continuing to support and provide, to provide information and encouragement to individuals around the world to say, hey, work can be better, right?
Yeah.
Productivity can be better. Life can be better. And here is a way. Listen, the framework doesn't do the job for us. We still have to do all the work. So you're not off the hook, right? Nobody's off the hook. We got to continue to do the work. And there's a lot of work to be done. But thanks for the work that you do to help people, to encourage people to do this. And thanks for having me on today. I never say no to an opportunity like this. So
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, all our viewers, for joining us. Really, really appreciate. Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you, everyone. With this, we conclude today's podcast with Jim. Strengths-based development, expanding strengths movement in India, lessons learned from India and USA. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Have a great time, everyone.